I feel very confident because you hear constantly terrible things going on, particularly in America, where there are so many
Mm.
people with guns, but also there are many stabbings in London. And, I think if your name is on the gun or the knife, then it's your turn.
There was an incredibly upsetting statement from the British Israeli rabbi Leo D yesterday following his wife's death, having just buried his two daughters. Our family of 7 is now a family of 4, he said. On Friday, the family set out from their home in the occupied West Bank to drive to a holiday in 2 cars. 15 minutes later, his sister called to say a vehicle in the area had been attacked. Rabbi D called his wife and then his daughter Maya and then his daughter Rena to try and find out if they were okay, but none of them answered. The family emigrated from London to the Israeli West Bank settlement of Efrat several years ago. The town is home to many British Israeli people, and one of them, Sue May, is on the line now. Morning, Sue.
Good morning.
Thanks very much for your time. What did you make of this story as the details started to become clearer and clearer over the past few days?
Well, it's just absolutely heartbreaking. It's an arbitrary shooting. It's got nothing to do with the fact that these people came from Efrat. It could have been anybody.
Why did you say that?
Um, because they just shot at a car that was driving along the road, nowhere near Efrat.
Mm. Do you think there'll be more concerns? Even, I take your point, but do you think there will be concerns about security going forward, especially people in settlements like yours?
We have very good security now. I feel safer in Efrat than I ever did in London, to be honest.
Really?
We have Efrat is gated, and there are armed guards at the gate, and they're very very good at their job.
And what kind of security do you have when you leave the settlement, though?
I Nothing really. I don't even have protected windows, but I feel very confident because you hear constantly terrible things going on, particularly in America, where there are so many
Mm.
people with guns, but also there are many stabbings in London. And I think if your name is on the gun or the knife, then it's your turn. But I come from a family that managed to escape the Holocaust. My mother was on the last train out of Germany in 1939, and I feel very lucky that I exist at all, to be honest.
What led you to Ifrat? How did you get there? You moved 5 years ago, is that right?
So, it, my husband and I went to a conference many years ago, and we met somebody with the same surname May as us, and it turned
Mm.
out it was a second cousin. That second cousin lives in Efrat. My husband had dementia for 11 and a half years and was in a wheelchair when we actually emigrated to Israel. So I needed a something where he could sleep on the ground floor. And they found a house in Efrat. It happens that my son lives walking distance away in another village in Gush Etzion. So it's a beautiful place to live. The weather's fabulous there. The scenery, I've always dreamt of living in the countryside. And very often you see herds of goats, herds of sheep, and Arab men on donkeys. But we have a very good relationship with the Arabs that come and help us in Efrat. I have a gardener who is incredibly good to me. When I had an operation recently, he bought me roses. I mean, I can tell you a very sweet story about my Arab gardener if you have time.
Oh, go on.
Yeah. So I was packing to go to London. I haven't been for 3 years. And I packed a very heavy case. And then I thought, how on earth am I going to get this case downstairs? So I thought, well, I'll try my gardener, Musa, see if he happens to be in Efrat. And I phoned up and he said to me, we speak in Hebrew. I'm sorry, I'm not in Efrat, but I'll see what I can do for you. And then he phoned up a few minutes later and he said, I found somebody who will help you. Next thing I know, there's a knock at the door, and it's my next door neighbour. And he says to me, your agent phoned Sue and said you needed help with your suitcase. I mean, that's a typical lovely relationship we have
And
with
yet,
local Arabs from a little village nearby.
and yet we know that tensions between Palestinians and Israelis has got, well, it's been heated obviously for a long time, but especially recently when there have been some rocket attacks, things have got politically a bit more difficult again. Do you ever look at what's happening with the coalition in Jerusalem and worry about how that might feed down to violence where you're living?
What do you mean by the coalition?
Sorry, the government in
In
Israel.
Jerusalem? The government in Israel, sorry. Um, I don't think it's going to feed down from the little local village because that's their livelihood. They need money to live as we all do, and they say they've never had it so good, that village. I talked to a handyman, Ratab, his name is, and he says to me, my father remembers life under the Turkish mandate and then the British mandate, and it's never been better for them.
Sue, thanks for
Now
your
you
time.
can believe it if you want to, but it comes straight out of his mouth.
Thank you, Sue, for your time this morning. I appreciate it. That's Sue May, who, as she explained, has lived in Efrat for more than 5 years, where the family of Rabbi Leo D, they were living in that area as well.